The courtroom didn't feel as imposing as I'd imagined. Overhead, the fluorescent lights hummed a low, unsettling note while I sat behind a heavy wooden table, its surface etched with decades of nervous initials. My lawyer, David Miller, meticulously arranged his files, a quiet testament to his 30 years in practice. Across the aisle, my younger sister, Sarah, perched on her chair as if she owned the place, her lawyer, Robert Vance, leaning into whisper strategy. Behind them, my parents, Eleanor and Richard. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a crumpled tissue, while Dad stared straight ahead, his jaw set in that familiar, stubborn line I'd known my whole life. I honestly never thought it would come to this: the family court, lawyers, a judge deciding which version of my history was true. Growing up in Boise, we lived in a 3-bedroom house on Maple Avenue that Dad bought in 1989. Nothing grand, but it had a backyard where Sarah and I built snow forts every winter. Mom worked as a dental hygienist, Dad managed a hardware store. We weren't wealthy, just comfortable. Sarah arrived when I was 4, a shock of dark hair and lungs that could wake the entire neighborhood. I remember standing by her bassinet, watching her tiny fingers, feeling a surge of fierce protectiveness. She was mine to look after. That instinct, I now realize, stuck with me far longer than it should have. By the time I was 16, the dynamic had shifted. Sarah, 12, had mastered the art of working every angle. She'd break something, blame me, and somehow I'd be grounded while she got ice cream. Mom would say, "You're older. You should know better." Dad would just shake his head and retreat to his garage. I started working at 15, bagging groceries at Fairway Foods, saving every paycheck in a shoebox under my bed. I dreamed of Washington State University's veterinary program. Sarah, on the other hand, got everything handed to her: new clothes, a laptop at 12, even riding lessons because she once mentioned horses were pretty. Why do I have to buy my own school supplies? I asked Mom one August afternoon. She was folding laundry, her hands moving with an automatic rhythm. "You have a job, sweetheart." "Sarah's too young. I'm saving for college." "College is years away. School supplies are now." She smiled, ending the conversation. I bought my own notebooks, pens, and a graphing calculator that cost a week's wages. Senior year brought acceptance letters. WSU offered admission, but no scholarship. Tuition was manageable with loans, but I needed help with housing and books. I showed Dad the paperwork. He barely looked up from the television. "We don't have that kind of money lying around. I'm not asking for everything, just maybe $1,000 to get started. I'll pay you back. Your mother and I have expenses. The roof needs work. Sarah's braces aren't cheap." Sarah's braces had been paid off 2 years ago. I was asking for college. He finally met my eyes. "You've got a job. Figure it out." I took out student loans that would follow me for decades, moved into a dorm room the size of a closet, and worked 20 hours a week at the campus library. I called home every Sunday because Mom said it hurt her feelings if I didn't. Sarah got her license at 16. Dad bought her a powder blue Honda Civic. She totaled it 3 months later while texting. He bought her another. I graduated in 4 years with a biology degree and enough debt to buy a small house. Accepted into vet school in Denver, I packed everything I owned into 6 boxes and drove north in a Toyota where the radio only played AM stations. Vet school was consuming, 18-hour days, practicals where one mistake could mean failure. I made friends with other exhausted students who understood that vending machine crackers were dinner and coffee was a food group. During my second year, Grandpa Arthur passed. He'd been the one who taught me to fish, who slipped me $20 bills, who actually asked about my dreams. I borrowed money I didn't have to fly home for the funeral. Afterward, near the coffee station in the Parkview Chapel basement, Dad pulled me aside. "Arthur left the Maple Avenue house to your mother and me. Paid off. No mortgage." A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. "That's wonderful. We're keeping it." Sarah will need somewhere to live after college. Sarah was 17 and hadn't even started college. She'll need help getting established. You managed on your own just fine. He walked away before I could respond. I flew back to Denver that night, crying quietly in seat 23B. Vet school graduation arrived on a Saturday in June. I'd finished in the top 15% and already secured a job in Fort Collins. No one from my family attended. Mom said the drive was too far. Dad claimed he couldn't get time off. Sarah didn't bother with an excuse. My friend Chloe's parents took photos of us both. Her mom hugged me tight and whispered, "We're so proud of you." I nearly broke down. The clinic in Fort Collins was everything I'd worked for. Dr. Hayes, my supervising vet, had a dry sense of humor and actually respected my opinions. The pay was modest, but after years of ramen, it felt like wealth. I rented a studio with a view of a parking lot, furnished it with thrift store finds, and adopted Franklin, a three-legged cat. We were a matching set, both of us patched together, making it work. Sarah graduated high school and enrolled at Boise State University. Dad bought her another powder blue Honda Civic. She majored in communications, which seemed to involve group projects and complaining on social media. My parents paid her tuition in full. It's different now, Mom explained on one of our increasingly rare phone calls. We're in a better financial position. You were in a better position when Grandpa Arthur died and left you a house. That's not fair. We had expenses you don't understand. I understand that Sarah gets everything while I'm still paying off loans from undergrad. Mom's voice went cold. You always were jealous of your sister. I stopped calling every Sunday after that. Years passed. I became a senior veterinarian, moved to a one-bedroom with sunlight, and started dating Jason, a teacher who made me laugh. We got engaged on a hike up Mount Hood. He proposed at sunrise with a ring he'd saved 6 months to buy. We planned a small wedding. Mom RSVP'd yes, then called 2 weeks before. Your father's back is acting up. We can't make the drive. It was 3 hours. Sarah could drive you. Sarah has plans. I got married on a Saturday in October with Jason's family filling the rows. Chloe stood as my maid of honor, squeezing my hand during the vows. Jason and I built a good life in Golden Ridge. We bought a small house, adopted 2 more rescue dogs. We talked about starting a family, but waited until my loans were more manageable. Then Dad called on a Tuesday in March. Your mother had a stroke. The world tilted. She's stable at Community General Hospital in Boise. You should come. I drove through the night, Jason beside me. Mom looked small in that hospital bed. Dad sat in the corner, his face gray. Sarah was nowhere. Where's your sister? I asked. She's dealing with this in her own way. Mom recovered slowly. The stroke affected her left side, requiring intensive therapy. I drove down every weekend to help, shopping, cooking, managing medications, arguing with insurance. Sarah showed up occasionally, usually to cry about how stressed she was. During one visit, Dad asked me to step outside. We stood on the driveway where I'd learned to ride a bike. Your mother and I have been talking about the future, he said. About what? We're getting older. We need to make arrangements. A warning bell went off. Arrangements? We've decided to transfer the Maple Avenue house into Sarah's name. She'll take care of us as we age, and she deserves security after everything she's done. I laughed, an ugly sound. Everything she's done? I'm the one who's been here every weekend for 3 months. Sarah shows up to Instagram hospital cafeteria food. Sarah has been under tremendous stress. So have I. I'm driving 6 hours round trip every weekend while working full-time. Dad's expression hardened. This is our decision. Sarah needs support, and you've always been independent. Independent because you forced me to be. You didn't pay for my college. You didn't come to my graduation. You missed my wedding because Sarah had brunch plans. We gave you every opportunity. You gave me nothing. Every single thing I have, I earned myself while Sarah got a free ride. This conversation is over. He walked back inside, leaving me in the driveway. I stopped visiting. Mom called, her voice plaintive. I tried to explain, but the words came out angry, so I stopped answering. Jason held me as I cried. Franklin curled up, purring his strange comfort. Life continued. Then the certified letter arrived. Sarah was suing me, claiming I had manipulated our parents, taken advantage of their vulnerability during Mom's illness, and demanding an accounting of all funds I'd supposedly obtained from the family estate. What assets? What funds? I'd never taken $1 from them beyond childhood birthday money. Jason found me at the kitchen table, still staring at the papers. She hired Robert Vance. That firm charges $400 an hour. Where would Sarah get that kind of money? We both knew the answer. Mom and Dad were funding this. I hired David Miller. He had white hair, reading glasses on a chain, and a reputation for being relentlessly thorough. His retainer cost $5,000, money I couldn't afford, but Jason and I pulled from our emergency fund, and I picked up extra shifts. David reviewed everything: bank statements, tax returns, loan documents. Your sister's case is completely without merit, he said, but we'll need to defend it properly. This will cost you both financially and emotionally. Why would they do this? Sometimes families create narratives that justify their own actions. If they convince themselves you're the villain, they don't have to feel guilty about how they treated you. Discovery was brutal. Robert Vance requested documentation going back 15 years. My entire adult life laid bare. I provided everything. There was nothing to hide. Then came the depositions. I sat in a conference room while Robert Vance asked questions designed to make me look manipulative. Had I asked my parents for money? Yes, for college. Did they give it to me? No. Had I resented my sister? David objected frequently. Sarah's deposition was apparently a performance. David told me she cried multiple times, claiming I'd always been jealous and manipulative, that I'd tried to turn our parents against her. She produced a list of alleged loans they'd given me that I never repaid. None of that happened, I told David. I know, he said, but she's convincing when she cries. Mom and Dad submitted affidavits supporting Sarah's version, claiming they'd given me substantial financial support. Reading those sworn statements felt like swallowing glass. My parents, signing their names to lies. The trial date arrived. I wore a navy suit Jason helped me pick out. David carried his files in a leather briefcase that had seen decades of courtrooms. We walked through the courthouse, my heels clicking against marble. Judge Evans presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience. She'd reviewed our briefs and didn't look impressed. Sarah sat with Robert Vance, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She dabbed at her eyes before proceedings began. Behind her, Mom and Dad looked somber and righteous. My side held Jason, Chloe, and Dr. Hayes, who'd taken the day off. Their presence was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Robert Vance opened, painting me as a master manipulator. David's opening was quieter. He outlined my actual history, my loans, my independence, my caregiving during Mom's stroke. He promised to show Sarah's claims were fiction. The first witness was Dad. Robert Vance led him through a narrative I barely recognized. In this version, they'd paid for my college, my wedding, supported me through vet school. We gave her every chance, Dad said, his voice heavy with manufactured disappointment. And she took advantage of your generosity? Robert Vance prompted. Yes. David's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Richard, do you have any canceled checks showing payments to your daughter for college? We gave cash. Any receipts, withdrawal slips from that time period? It was years ago. You claim you paid $20,000 for her undergraduate education in cash and kept no records? We trusted her to remember. But you do have records of paying for Sarah's education at Boise State, correct? Those tuition payments appear on your tax returns as educational expenses. Dad shifted. That's different. How is it different? Sarah needed more support. David pulled up my student loan documents, still bearing my signature. These are your daughter's student loans. If you paid for her college, why would she need to borrow $63,000? I don't know what she spent that money on. The loan documents clearly state they were dispersed directly to Washington State University for tuition and fees. The money never touched your daughter's hands. Robert Vance objected. Judge Evans overruled him. Mom testified next, crying on schedule. She talked about how much she loved me, how hard she'd tried, how I'd grown distant. She claimed they'd contributed $5,000 to my wedding. Mrs. Eleanor, David said gently, do you have any proof of this $5,000 gift? A mother shouldn't need proof of helping her child. In a court of law, we need evidence. Is there a check, a bank transfer? We gave cash at the reception. David produced my wedding records. Your daughter's wedding cost $8,000 total. She and her husband paid for everything themselves. I have their bank statements showing the exact withdrawals. Mom's tears increased. She's lying about all of this to make us look bad. Ma'am, these are bank records, not testimony. They don't have opinions. Sarah took the stand, an expression of wounded innocence. She described a childhood where I'd bullied her, stolen from her, made her life miserable. She claimed I'd manipulated our parents during Mom's stroke, trying to get them to change their will. I had to protect them, she said, trembling. Someone had to stand up to her. David approached her. Miss Sarah, you claim your sister attempted to manipulate your parents during your mother's illness? Yes. Were you present during your mother's hospitalization and recovery? Sarah hesitated. I visited, how many times? I don't remember exactly. David produced sign-in logs from Community General Hospital and Mom's Physical Therapy Center. These records show your sister visited 42 times over 3 months. Your name appears 3 times. Would you say that's an accurate representation? I was dealing with emotional trauma. I'm asking about frequency of visits. Your sister drove from Golden Ridge to Boise every weekend, correct? Approximately 6 hours round trip. She did that every weekend for 3 months while working full-time. Meanwhile, you live 15 minutes from your parents' house and visited 3 times. Is that accurate? Robert Vance objected. Judge Evans told him to sit down. Yes, Sarah admitted quietly. During this time, when your sister was supposedly manipulating your parents, did she ask them for money? I don't know. Did she ask them to change their will? She must have. I'm asking what you actually know, Miss Sarah. Do you have any evidence? Any conversations? Any documents? Any witnesses showing your sister requested financial compensation for her caregiving? No, thank you. That's all. The trial continued for 3 days. Robert Vance brought in a handwriting expert. David brought in my bank's regional manager. Beck called a family friend. David called Dr. Hayes, who testified about my character. On the 4th day, Judge Evans called a recess. Something had shifted in her expression. We returned after lunch. Robert Vance delivered his closing with dramatic flair. David responded with a calm recitation of facts, numbers, and the complete absence of evidence. Then, Judge Evans did something unexpected. She set down her pen and looked directly at my family. "Before I issue a ruling, I want to address something." Her voice carried an edge. "This court takes allegations of financial exploitation seriously. I've presided over many such cases. However, I've also seen cases where false allegations are weaponized to punish family members who refuse to participate in dysfunctional dynamics. This appears to be the latter." Dad's face went pale. Mom clutched Sarah's hand. "Prior to trial, I took the liberty of reviewing public records independently. Property records, tax filings, court documents. This is standard practice when claims seem facially implausible." She pulled out a folder. "The property at Maple Avenue was transferred to Mrs. Eleanor in 2008 following Arthur Patterson's passing. No mortgage. Tax records show no liens, no encumbrances. The Richards filed taxes jointly for 43 years. Not once did they claim educational expenses for the plaintiff's daughter. They claimed such expenses for the defendant's sister for 4 consecutive years. Bank records subpoenaed by this court show no large cash withdrawals during the relevant time periods that would support claims of cash gifts." Judge Evans' expression hardened. Most tellingly, the plaintiff carries student loan debt of $63,000 that has been in repayment for over a decade. The defendant's sister has no educational debt. The parents' financial records show direct payments to Boise State University on her behalf. The courtroom was silent. Robert Vance's confident posture had evaporated. "I reviewed the property and tax records," Judge Evans repeated slowly. "Someone here is lying." She looked directly at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Richard, you submitted sworn affidavits claiming you provided substantial financial support to your older daughter. Those statements are contradicted by every single piece of documentary evidence. You claimed cash gifts that left no financial footprint despite both of you having maintained checking accounts for decades. You claimed your daughter manipulated you, yet records show she was the only family member providing consistent care during Mrs. Eleanor's medical crisis." Mom started crying again, but this time it sounded panicked. Judge Evans turned to Sarah. "Miss Sarah, you initiated this lawsuit claiming your sister stole from your parents. Yet your sister has never received any inheritance, any gift, or any financial support from them beyond what any parent might provide to a minor child. You, meanwhile, have received full tuition payment, multiple vehicles, free housing, and now stand to inherit their primary asset despite providing minimal support during their time of need." Sarah opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "This lawsuit is not just without merit. It is frivolous and vindictive. Worse, it required your parents to commit perjury in support of your false claims." Judge Evans' voice was ice. "That is a crime." Robert Vance stood quickly. "Your Honor, my clients were perhaps mistaken in their recollections. Your clients submitted detailed sworn statements about specific dollar amounts and specific events. Those are not honest mistakes. Those are lies." She shuffled her papers with sharp, angry movements. "I am dismissing this case with prejudice. The plaintiff's claims are entirely without foundation. Furthermore, I am sanctioning both the plaintiff and her attorney for bringing a frivolous lawsuit. Miss Sarah, you will pay your sister's legal fees in full. Mr. Vance, your firm will be referred to the Bar Association for investigation." Robert Vance sat down hard, his face ashen. "Mr. and Mrs. Richard, I could hold you in contempt for perjury. I could refer this to the prosecutor's office." She paused, letting that sink in. "I won't. Because I suspect you've been manipulated by your younger daughter just as thoroughly as you manipulated each other into believing these lies. But understand this, you have committed a serious crime in this courtroom, and you have done so in service of cruelty toward a daughter who owed you nothing and gave you care anyway." Mom was openly sobbing. Dad stared at the table. Sarah looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Judge Evans' gaze finally landed on me. Her expression softened slightly. Ms. Patterson, I apologize that you were subjected to this. Your family's treatment of you has been appalling. I hope you surround yourself with people who actually deserve your loyalty. She banged her gavel once. This court is adjourned. The aftermath happened in fragments. Robert Vance rushed Sarah and my parents out through a side door. David shook my hand and promised to file the paperwork for fee recovery. Jason wrapped his arms around me in the hallway while Chloe and Dr. Hayes formed a protective barrier. I didn't cry. Maybe I was too empty. Maybe I'd already mourned this family. We drove home in silence, Jason's hand holding mine. Franklin greeted us at the door with his lopsided gait, demanding dinner. Life required tending. 2 weeks later, David called to inform me that Sarah had liquidated her savings account to pay my legal fees. $37,000, money my parents had apparently been funneling to her over the years. I asked him to donate it to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Mom tried calling. Once. I let it go to voicemail. She rambled about misunderstandings and family healing. I deleted it. Dad sent a 2-page letter, handwritten justifications about protecting Sarah, how they thought I was strong enough not to need them, how they never meant for things to go this far. He didn't apologize. I burned it in our fireplace. Sarah sent nothing. Judge Evans' words stayed with me. I hope you surround yourself with people who actually deserve your loyalty. Jason deserved it. Chloe deserved it. Dr. Hayes and my colleagues deserved it. Franklin and our ridiculous rescue dogs deserved it. These were the people who showed up without being asked, who supported without keeping score, who loved without conditions. 6 months after the trial, Jason and I started the adoption process. We'd talked about kids for years but kept postponing. Now, life felt stable. The emotional wounds were scabbing over. We had room in our house and our hearts for someone who needed what we could offer. The adoption agency asked about family support. I answered honestly. Jason's family would be involved. Mine would not. The social worker didn't ask follow-up questions. I suspect she'd heard similar stories before. They matched us with a 4-year-old boy named Leo. He had enormous brown eyes and a skepticism about adults that broke my heart. Our first meeting lasted 20 minutes. He didn't say a word. The second visit went better. He showed us his favorite truck. By the 5th visit, he fell asleep against my shoulder while I read to him. We brought him home on a Saturday in April. He clutched a garbage bag containing everything he owned, 3 outfits, 2 books, a stuffed elephant with 1 ear missing. "This is your room," Jason said, opening the door. Blue walls, bookshelves, a bed shaped like a race car. Leo looked around slowly, then up at us. "Mine?" "Yours," I confirmed. "Forever." His face crumpled. He cried for 20 minutes while we held him, this tiny person who'd spent his entire life being temporary, finally understanding that someone wanted to keep him. We became a family in the way that matters. Not through biology or obligation, but through choice and commitment. Leo started kindergarten, made friends. He learned to trust that when we said we'd pick him up, we actually showed up. He stopped hoarding food after realizing dinner would always be available. I never told him about my biological family. There was nothing to tell, really. What would I say? Your grandmother and grandfather didn't think I was worth investing in. Your aunt sued me for money I never had. Those weren't his stories to carry. Instead, we built new stories: birthday parties, summer vacations to Glacier National Park, regular dinners with Jason's parents, Grandma Margaret and Grandpa George, who claimed me as their daughter long before the courthouse validated my orphan status. Leo never questioned why there weren't more grandparents. Dr. Hayes retired and left me her share of the practice. I became a partner, which meant longer hours, but also the satisfaction of shaping the clinic's culture. Franklin passed when Leo was 7. We buried him in the backyard, and Leo made a marker from painted stones. He was a good cat, he said seriously. The best, I agreed. We adopted another 3-legged cat the following week. Leo named her Tripod with the blunt honesty of childhood. Life continued in its quiet way. Leo joined Little League. Jason got promoted to assistant principal. I published a paper on feline diabetes management. We painted the house, refinanced the mortgage, planned a trip to Scotland. Chloe got married and asked me to be her matron of honor. Her wedding was everything mine should have been, full of people who genuinely loved the couple. I gave a toast about chosen family being the truest kind of family. Occasionally, I wondered about Sarah, what she was doing, whether she learned anything from the trial or just crafted a new narrative where she remained the victim. I didn't wonder often, though. Some doors close completely, and trying to peek through the cracks only hurts you. Mom sent a Christmas card 2 years after the trial. A generic store-bought card with a printed greeting and her signature. No note, no apology. I threw it away. Dad passed when Leo was 9. I found out through an obituary alert. The funeral was held at Parkview Chapel, same place as Grandpa Arthur's service. I didn't attend. Jason offered to go with me for closure, but what closure? They'd already shown me exactly who they were. I sent flowers with a card that simply said, "Condolences to the family." Let them interpret that however they wanted. Leo asked about my parents eventually. He was 10, old enough to understand most kids had more than one set of grandparents. We were doing homework when he said, "How come I never met your mom and dad?" Jason looked up from grading papers. I set down my coffee. Sometimes families don't work out the way they should. My parents and I had very different ideas about what family means. We decided it was healthier not to be in each other's lives. He processed this with seriousness. Did they hurt you? Not in ways that left bruises, but yes, they hurt me. I'm sorry. I'm not. If things were different, I might not have ended up with you. And you're worth every hard thing that came before. He climbed into my lap, gangly and too big, but trying anyway. You're my real mom. You're my real son. Jason took a photo of us like that, tangled together at the kitchen table, smiling. He printed it and put it on his desk at school. When people asked about his family, that's the photo he showed them. I thought about Judge Evans' words often over the years, about surrounding myself with people who deserved my loyalty. I built that life deliberately, brick by brick, relationship by relationship. No one got access to me anymore based on biology or obligation. They earned it through their actions. The clinic thrived. My partnership meant financial security. We took Leo to Universal Studios, to Boston, to visit colleges when he turned 15. He wanted to be a teacher like Jason. We supported him completely, opened a college savings account, and promised him he'd graduate debt-free. You don't have to do that, he said. Yes, we do, Jason replied. That's what parents are supposed to do. Leo never took it for granted. He maintained a part-time job, saved his money, thanked us constantly. I told him he didn't need to thank us, this was just love in its practical form. He thanked us anyway. I got a letter from an attorney when Leo was 16. Mom had died. The estate was being settled. As next of kin, I was entitled to half the assets. Sarah was contesting this, claiming I'd been estranged by choice. The irony was almost funny. Almost. I called the attorney. I'm declining any inheritance. Give it all to Sarah. Are you certain? The estate is valued at approximately $400,000. Your share would be significant. I don't want anything from them. I never did. He tried to talk me through the implications. I cut him off. Draw up whatever paperwork makes this final. I'm done. Jason asked if I was sure. I'd never been more certain. Money from them would feel contaminated, like accepting payment for abuse and calling it love. We didn't need it. What we'd built was clean and ours. Sarah got everything. The Maple Avenue house, all the money, every physical reminder of our parents. I hoped it made her happy. I hoped she finally felt secure. I hoped it was worth what she'd sacrificed. Mostly, I hoped I never had to think about her again. Leo graduated high school with honors. We threw him a party in our backyard with his friends, teachers, and the family we'd chosen. Grandma Margaret made her famous lasagna. Grandpa George gave an embarrassing speech. Chloe brought her kids. This was family. This abundance of people who showed up because they wanted to, who celebrated each other's victories without resentment or scorekeeping, who loved without conditions attached. Leo left for college in the fall. We helped him move into his dorm, met his roommate, embarrassed him with too many hugs. He texted us that night, "Thanks for everything. I love you guys." Jason and I sat in Leo's empty room, holding hands in the silence. "We did good," he said. "Yeah, we really did." The house felt different without Leo's presence, but not empty. We had each other, the practice, friends who came over for game nights. We traveled more, took the trip to Scotland, hiked through the Appalachian Mountains, spent 2 weeks on the Maine coast. Life was full of the things that mattered and free of the things that didn't. No toxic obligation, no one-sided relationships, no pretending that DNA meant someone deserved access to your peace. I thought about the girl I'd been at 16, working at Fairway Foods, hiding money in a shoebox, dreaming of college while her parents bought her sister a car. I thought about the scared student taking out crushing loans, the veterinary student crying on a plane after a grandfather's funeral, the daughter helping her mother recover from a stroke while planning her own exile. That girl survived everything thrown at her. She built a life worth living. She became someone who knew her worth wasn't determined by whether her parents recognized it. Sometimes at night, I'd stand in Leo's doorway and look at his empty room. The race car bed replaced with a regular one for when he came home on breaks. His old toys packed away. Photos of his high school graduation covering the walls. I'd think about the choice we made to adopt him, to love him intentionally and completely. That was the revenge, I realized. Not a courtroom victory, though Judge Evans' words had felt satisfying. The real revenge was building exactly the kind of family I'd needed and never had. It was breaking every cruel pattern and replacing it with something better. It was proving that you could come from nothing and create everything. Jason would find me there sometimes, standing in the doorway. He'd wrap his arms around me from behind. We wouldn't need to say anything. He understood. Leo came home for Thanksgiving his freshman year. He'd grown, stood taller, spoke with new confidence. "Over pie," he said, "I told my roommate about how you guys adopted me." "Yeah, what did you say?" "That I'm the luckiest person alive. That I got the best parents in the world." I couldn't speak around the lump in my throat. Jason squeezed my hand under the table. "I mean it," Leo continued. "Some of the kids in my dorm, they're calling home crying because their families make them miserable. Meanwhile, I get to come home to you. That's everything." Later, after Leo had gone to bed, and Jason had fallen asleep on the couch, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. I thought about the long, strange journey that had brought me here. All the rejection, the lawsuit, the lies, Judge Evans' sharp words cutting through the pretense. I wouldn't change any of it. The pain had taught me discernment. The betrayal had shown me what real love looked like by contrast. The years of independence had made me strong enough to build something lasting. My parents gave me one gift, though they never meant to. They showed me exactly what not to do, exactly who not to be. Every decision I made as a parent came from asking what they would have done, then choosing the opposite. They'd given Sarah everything and made her weak. They'd given me nothing and made me unbreakable. In their cruelty, they'd freed me to become someone better than they ever were. That was the revenge. Not destruction, but creation. Not bitterness, but joy. Not isolation, but belonging. I finished my tea, turned off the lights, and went upstairs to where Jason slept. Down the hall, Leo was home safe. In the backyard, Tripod probably prowled through the garden. Tomorrow, we'd make breakfast together. This was the life I'd built from nothing. This was what winning looked like. Judge Evans was right. I'd surrounded myself with people who deserved my loyalty. And in doing so, I'd created something my parents never managed, a family that actually functioned, built on truth and choice and love that didn't need to be earned because it was freely given. The past was done. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and peace. Have you ever found yourself building something completely new from the ashes of your past?